Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to the power of our story. This is our first responder coffee and conversation group. So for those of you, I want to make sure that I change some of the pictures in the recording here. Okay. So for those of you who don't know what the power of our story is all about, it is a place of safety for our protectors. It's a place that we share stories. We either share our own story or we listen to other stories, and it's a way to connect. It's a way to heal. It's also a place to process the journey, and we can process together with others that get it. So if you are watching this on YouTube, I want you to know that if you're a protector, you're always welcome to come join us on this group. So to all of you protectors, we don't want you to struggle for years, suffering in silence and confusion. Anyone who is watching this, again, you are welcome to come. This has become like a family. It's become a place of healing and thriving. So tonight we are going to have our law enforcement officers, retired and active duty, all of whom have gone through trauma and have hit that day and have found their way to healing. They're going to share a 5-minute version of their story and advice, answering the question, if you knew what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self? They'll answer the question of what was your job, what happened when that day hit, the trauma or hardship during active duty or transition, and what do you wish you knew at the time? What advice would have been helpful? So today, I am thrilled to have Michael Pellegrino come and be our facilitator. He is the Resilient Minds on the Front Lines founder and is also a retired law enforcement officer. So after the stories are told, we'll have a time of question and answer. So Michael, welcome, and I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for everybody on this call, everybody on the Zoom. What an honor it is to be on this call right here with each and every one of you from all over the country. I think we even have outside the country as well, two people from outside the country. So just so blessed and so honored to be able to be the facilitator of this great webcast here. So I just want to get into it, real quickly and just let you know who I am, who Michael Pellegrino is. And I retired after 27 years in law enforcement. And I really, truly have a passion. My passion is to be able to help people and help for, first responders and everybody in that space to be able to navigate through being able to help people spiral up instead of hitting that dark hole and spiraling back down. That's what Resilient Minds is all about. Resilient Minds is all about helping those on the front lines, whether, whatever that front lines may be, because it has a whole new connotation after COVID and being able to help them spiral back up. So with that, let's get into our first person. I believe Dave Berez is going to go first. So Dave, just tell us a little bit about your story and the power of it.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to watch our program and for taking some of what we have to offer to help yourselves. As Michael said, my name is David Berez. I'm a 30-year emergency services veteran. I started at the age of 14 doing volunteer EMS. I did 20 years as a police officer, and now I'm the OEM coordinator in Hopewell Township in New Jersey. I also currently train law enforcement officers in resilience, partly through Resilient Minds on the Front Lines with Michael as well. And Michael, thank you for bringing me into that program and giving me the opportunity to help others through your company. So during my career, I was a drug recognition expert. I was a field training officer. I was an officer in charge. I had several detachments to the Detective Bureau. I served at 9/11 World Trade Center site for 3 days. And I was on the Violent Crimes Task Force in our county and the Rapid Response Task Force as well. I accumulated a lot of different experiences over the course of my career, all of which were special in their own right, and I wouldn't give any of them back. I truly appreciate the opportunities that I had through all of my EMS, police, and now OEM experiences. I never had a specific incident that I would call to be the trauma that was that day. My day came after retirement, during my transition into retirement itself. I spent my career suppressing my emotions. I never dealt with anything that came along the way in and of itself. And I never dealt with all the accumulated traumas in and or out of work. And after retirement, they dealt with me, and I didn't have a choice but to face it. And after about 2 months of my longest vacation ever post-retirement, I started to realize that I needed to do some work on myself. Things started to get dark on me quickly, and I felt like I needed some assistance, some backup for myself. That truly came to a head when a close friend of mine had taken his own life in July of 2020. And that's when Michael actually gave me the opportunity to be resiliency officer in New Jersey. And it changed everything for me and changed my trajectory. So through that process, the training with the state and then the training with Resilient Minds directly, I was able to take the tools from that education and not only help myself, but I was able to take those tools and start helping other people. So what would I want to know if to tell my younger self? I would want the resiliency tools that I learned 30 years afterwards. I'd want to learn them on the first day. So when you do get to your last day and you're ready to walk away from your job, you can do so with confidence. You can do so with a sense of purpose to that next chapter in your life. That would be probably the number one. During the course of my career, I would have wished I had the advice that to rise above the internal politics. They're going to happen. People are going to be at each other. People are going to do things that you don't like. Rise above it, move beyond it. Don't let it affect you or your career. Stay away from all of it. I would take every opportunity given to me and every opportunity earned. I would never turn down anything, even if it was not my first choice of things to do. I would use it as a stepping stone, to create opportunity for myself. The next thing I would want to know is to make sure that you find ways to have the job and the assignments that you're given and the assignments that you're earned to serve you. We do a lot of serving the job. We do a lot of serving our communities. We need to make sure that the job is serving us. I would journal my journey. That has helped me in retirement when you write things down and you can have a place where it lives and lands and you don't have to let it swirl around your head. I would talk to a psychologist with purpose, even when things are, especially when things are going good, to make sure that it's a comfortable and safe place for me. So when things aren't going good, it wasn't something new when I asked for help. I would always be kind and show empathy to others. And I would never forget to give myself and others grace. We tend to do that as police officers, and we need to take time to know that we're not perfect, neither are the people around us. And when you get bored and complacent, recognize that for your own sake, to be able to get back on track. Boredom and complacency will kill. So you need to find a way to recognize when that happens to you. And that way you can move forward as well. And it's never too early to prepare for your retirement so you can retire with purpose. That is so important, to retire with purpose. Give yourself something to do after retirement. And the last thing I would say is make sure you tell your story. Tell your story about your journey, and hearing those words out loud will help you process it, and it'll give you a good way to move forward. So thank you for everybody for taking the opportunity to listen, for taking some advice of some of us retirees and active duty officers. And I look forward to hearing everybody else's suggestions as well.
Thank you so much, Dave. That was awesome. I was taking some notes here. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, just as a follow-up question, is what resiliency tool works for you? People listening right now, what is the one thing that you've taken away from the program, whether it's wherever it may be, that kind of really works for you? That you might.
There's two, actually, that I really dive into greatly. The act of gratitude. Giving gratitude and receiving gratitude, I think, are both very important skills where you can find yourself in a much brighter place. The other is random acts of kindness. Doing good things for other people always brings joy to myself. And while it's a selfish feeling, it's a selfless act. And so random acts of kindness and giving gratitude are probably the two greatest tools I use for myself.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, Dave. I know for me personally, it's always about two things. It's about giving and growing. If I'm doing those two things, I really feel alive. So great job. Thank you so much for sharing. Great, Dave. Thank you very much. All right, who's up next? That next is.
I am up next.
Go ahead, Terry. You want to just introduce yourself and know the questions, and I may ask a couple follow-up questions because I'm taking copious notes here.
So I'm Terry Peters. I'm in Massachusetts. I was a law enforcement officer for 30 plus years. I got on the force when I was 23 years old. In '89, I was actually the first female in the history of my town. I retired in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, December 31st, 2019. I have my master's in counseling psychology. I retired as the mental health liaison and domestic violence officer from my agency. I don't believe I really had that specific day that hit. I would actually say that it happened throughout my whole career. It wasn't anything out on the street that I encountered. It was more internal. As the first female in the history of my town, I encountered a lot of adversity, discrimination. I was actually denied 3 pay raises under one chief and ended up living through a 10-year lawsuit under that chief, winning. I promised myself I would be his worst nightmare, and I was not going to give up. And I mean, my career was pretty much that way through the whole thing. And my goal was to make my 32 years. In Massachusetts, we do 32 years at 55. I loved being a police officer. Today, what I would tell myself is it's a job. It's not who you are. It's what you do. I would have definitely shifted that mindset early on. One of the other things I definitely would have done was stayed on the agency I was a part of for probably the first 3-4 years, get as much as I could out of it, and then move to a larger agency with the hopes that as a female in that environment, it would have made it easier for me to work my way up through the ranks, to actually achieve more in that environment where it is, like David had said, the politics, and even in picking up on the ego-driven mentality, that was not something that I really felt very comfortable in. I also believe leaving the agency and being so identified with being a police officer hurt me. And I, like David had indicated, planning for your future and living in who you are as an individual as opposed to the job, and moving out of that and having a plan. And then also gratitude, and constantly looking for gratitude in our everyday life, regardless of the circumstances that we come up against. So I think pretty much.
Yeah, that's so true, that gratitude. That's the one thing that I use when I feel like I'm spiraling. At that point, I want to catch myself, what we call catch ourselves catching ourselves. And when we catch ourselves, we want to be able to stop ourselves and spiral back up. And that's a great point that you made, Terry. Just a quick question. You said that you loved the job. Tell me what you loved about it.
When I got into law enforcement, I got into law enforcement to help others. And I really have to say that it was a true calling for me. It wasn't about it. When I engage with individuals, I had always treated them with respect. And if things turned, that's when I, obviously in that position, taking that role. But I really love the idea of actually helping individuals and talking to them and treating them like people, helping educate them. And that was a huge part of who I was when I was working.
That's so important. And loving your job is great. And I loved my job, but the one thing that I realized on the job is it didn't love me back.
Mm.
And that was the one thing that we as individuals, I always wanted to know what my why was in my life and my purpose, but I didn't really know that until later on in life, because one of my mentors said it best, John Maxwell. He says, when you find your why, you find your way. And I think that really resonated with me, and really wanted to take that to the next level. So, Terry, that's awesome. Would you like to add anything else, or?
Well, I think part of helping other people is serve, educate, and protect.
Sure. Nothing more important than that. Absolutely. And that's what we want to do. We're all in this together sometimes, and it's about that RESPECT. When we respect one another, we treat one another the way we want to be treated. And I think if we live by that golden rule, I think that's what we really want to do. So thank you so much for sharing, Terry. Thank you. All right, Ryan Burke from Somerville, South Carolina.
Hey everybody, good evening. Ryan Burke. I'm active duty law enforcement here in South Carolina. I've probably have to say I've learned a lot over these last few months. Not as definitely about trauma, but more about being a mentally, physically, spiritually healthy law enforcement officer. So early on in my career, I was that typical young cop. Worked every extra duty, did all the extra overtime, volunteered to do this, volunteered to do that, and I let my job consume me and become, who I was and not what I did. And then when the day came to where I realized that this job can be taken at the drop of a hat, like it was for me, I realized that this job is what I do, not who I was. So recently I have learned a couple things. One, I think it's starting to become a common theme, is gratitude. But for me, it's being grateful for the opportunities that I have and being grateful to be able to do my job every day, and just being grateful to the good things that come, whether it's, a good thing you do at work or whatever else, and just being grateful for what I have in life and refocusing, the important things of what I have in life, and being grateful for the fact that I have my wife, my family, the things that are going to be there long after I leave law enforcement. And then the second thing that I've kind of learned, I read a book. For those of you who know me, that's like a huge accomplishment. I've read a book. Is learning about the hypervigilance roller coaster and realizing, the constant hypervigilance awareness while I'm at work, and then coming home and falling victim to what the book refers to as the magic chair, or whatever you want to call it. And just, being home, but I'm not really home. Like, I'm just there, but I'm not present. So really learning how to be more present in my life, and that comes with, kind of folds back over to being grateful of my wife and what I have at home, and realizing the things are actually important to me. Taking care of myself physically, exercising regularly to really help deal with that stresses of work and getting out of that up and down roller coaster. and then I would definitely say the other thing is that kind of going back to like what Terry said, is that this job is, it's what you do, it's not who you are. And going to work, doing my job, but also being present in my household and doing, putting, it's easy to go to work and do my job because I've been doing it for so long. But a household takes work every day, and it's a new task every day. It's a new challenge every day to really build a healthy, relationship, marriage, and household, being present. So that's what I would tell my younger self is, there's more important things than this job, and, do things to take care of yourself, not only emotionally survive on the job, but off the job as well.
Yeah. No,
That's
that
all.
you said something in your hypervigilance. Where's the bear? Where's the bear? Where's the bear? Pretty much. So even if the bear's not there, what are you looking for? You're looking for the bear.
Exactly.
So even when things aren't there, you're looking for them, you're seeing them. And how do you control that? How do you find yourself being more present in the moment? In Resilient Minds, we call it being where our feet are. What would you say would be, what would you tell your younger self?
Well, I think the first thing I would tell myself is that I've recently gotten back to physically taking care of myself. In the gym, lifting, exercising, building my strength, building my body, and taking care of that. And obviously, there's twofold to that. I mean, it's really one thing. I mean, the main thing is it's all about survival, and it's not just survival on the street and being strong. It's all about survival, both professionally and personally. So it's, you benefit getting strong, you benefit getting in shape for work, but you're also benefiting to take that stress out after work before you come home and causing problems, within the relationship that, like you said, look for the bear that's not there. And you're just, then I take that one step further by looking for the bear, but when the bear's not there, you become the bear.
Yeah. It's a great point. It's a great point, Ryan. So that just being able to control that, and obviously we call them the boogeyman thoughts, because we work from the neck up. We can go to the gym and work from the neck down all we want, but unfortunately, we live in, from the neck up, and that's where we have that intangible thing we call fear, and we can't touch it, but we know it's there. So would you like to add anything else, Ryan?
I'm good.
You're good. You're good.
I'm
What
good.
are you grateful for today?
Everything. I mean, I'm just, I'm grateful.
Don't be a vanilla on me.
I mean, I'm grateful for, I got some great training today for work. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to be home back here with my wife. I'm grateful that I got to go see probably the movie of the year in Top Gun.
I can't wait to see it.
Phenomenal. Probably better than the first one.
All right.
I think I shed a tear a little bit when that F-14 Tomcat made its appearance, but I'm just everything. I'm grateful. I'm going to Mexico next week. I'm grateful for that.
Okay.
What am I going to complain about? That's, can't complain about nothing. And things that are not in my control, I can't control.
All right. Well, you can complain about your golf game. You can do that.
Listen,
All
we're
right.
gonna have a rematch, and I'll get my money back on that one. So,
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you for
No
sharing all that. That's great. That's great. All right, Paul Curtis. Paul Curtis. Tell us who Paul is. I think you're on mute, Paul. If you can unmute yourself.
So you wanted to actually hear this.
I was trying to read your lips, but I couldn't. I wasn't good enough to do that.
Well, that's one thing that I have learned how to do because of my hearing. But in any event, I'm Paul Curtis. I spent 10 years in diplomatic intelligence, became a police officer, eventually became a sergeant. Walked in off duty on an armed robbery that was taking place in a little drive-in dairy. Involved 11 gang members who were taking everything in sight. 2 of them were armed. I was not. I was not because I had the notion that because I was just going around the corner from my house to get a quart of milk, what harm could that do? And our policy was that you're armed when you walk out the door. Doesn't matter what you look like, you're armed. And to this day, I'm grateful that I was not armed, because had I reached for my weapon, I wouldn't be sitting here. The guy had his muzzle about a foot from my forehead, and I hit his arm so hard that I almost broke it. I took the gun in the meantime, and he discharged it as I was removing it from his hand and blew out my left eardrum. I, believe it or not, had 9% hearing lift. And so I have this little toy and hearing aids and some other things that I use to help me understand words, which is my difficulty. But I want to address something that Keith said for just a moment, and that is that back in the 80s, and you will remember this because you were here, one of the things that you did not do is tell your superiors that you needed help for an emotional issue, a spiritual issue, a physical issue, any of the rest of that, because doing so could wind up costing you your job, simply because they would find you unfit for duty and terminate you. And I was a sergeant, and it was pretty clear to me that that could even happen to me, even though I was a watch commander and the FTO and all the rest of that. But having done that, and well, there were a couple of really funny things that happened, and I'll share them briefly because most of you will understand where I'm going with this. My very first night on duty out of the academy, which is in 1977, I was assigned as a passenger officer with an FTO by the name of Bob Evans, who had been 31 years on the police department. We did a traffic stop on a lady who ran a stop sign right smack in front of us. Little hard to ignore. And so we did the traffic stop. I got out, took the guard position. He walked up to the car, introduced himself, and asked for driver's license and registration. Back then, you weren't quite required to carry insurance, but and all of a sudden I hear him say in a very loud voice, "Oh no, ma'am, haven't you read the papers? The chief took away our quota and we can write as many citations as we want to now." And I thought to myself, this is going to be a really good job. Getting down to the short straws, I would tell my younger self to start every encounter with a citizen, no matter a pedestrian or a driver or whatever the circumstance, with a pleasant tone, pleasant manner, and yet be incredibly aware in terms of situational awareness. Because when you're smiling and he's smiling, you think everything's okay, that's the time to pay attention. Not because I'm looking for the bear, but because I don't want to become fodder for the bear. And it's that simple. And I would like to share with you my why, which has changed over the years, by the way. But it goes like this. I have been given advantages in life that many other people have not. I don't want to take these advantages for granted. Instead, I want to use them, to use the opportunities to pass these advantages along to others. That is what brings me great joy. And with that, I'll sign off. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you, Paul. That was incredible, incredible story, and so blessed to be able to hear and have a conversation with you right now. And one of the things that really struck a chord with me is something that you said about interpersonal connection. That's what I related it to. Interpersonal connection. Communication is so very important, and that is one of the key components I know for even resiliency is being able to have that, have that connection and that connectivity. So, thank you for sharing your story, Paul. It was very enlightening, and it was awesome. I just so glad to be able to have this opportunity to talk to you. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you, sir.
Thank you. Chris Hoyer. Who is Chris Hoyer?
Hi guys. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Sarah. Hey, I know we haven't done this, but if it's okay, I don't want to step on any toes, but if we could dedicate this to all of our Texas families. I know everybody's struggling with that right now. So, and for all the guys who can't be here, God bless them all. So I know there's a lot of people I'd like to be here as well that just can't for whatever reason, but we are all here, so we're all blessed to be here. So for you guys that don't know my story, I got hired on in '97, Phoenix PD. I was 27, just got done running my own construction company at the time, and I graduated in '98 and got my first shooting in '99, my second shooting in 2000, my first rifle shooting in 2013, and my rifle career-ending gunfight in 2016. And my whole career basically kind of started to topple at about 2016 in February when I watched an 8-year-old hang himself right in front of me. Two of my good buddies got into a really nasty gunfight, and I was involved in an investigation that led to the death of 3 innocent people that should never have happened. And then my buddy Dave Glasser was killed May 18, 2016, which that anniversary just passed, matter of fact. So clearly I've been through some stuff, and not even talking about the 16 officers I buried in the line of duty, plus the 3 since I've retired. It's just unbelievable, the amount of stuff that I've seen and done in my career. The fact that I'm even still here is just, I can't even believe it. But fortunately, I did most of my stuff right in my career. I had kind of planned out some stuff for the end, but there were a few things that I kind of wish that I had told myself back in the day. And one of those was, I think Ryan touched on this a little bit about volunteering for everything. My version of volunteering for anything looks more on the side of training. Whenever I'm doing like SWAT training or stuff like that, I always wanted to be the first one to do it, to just kind of either get it out of the way or make all the mistakes that everybody else could learn from, and then everybody else could just kind of take it on board. Since I tend to be the butt of the joke sometimes, I thought it's kind of good for just everybody else to let it get out early, and then we can kind of take it on board from there. So, and the reason I got hired on, the reason I joined the department to begin with was to have fun. I really did. And I lost that when Dave was killed in 2016, and it took me well over 2 years to figure out that the day he was killed was the day I checked out. And I kind of lost the love for the job after a while, and I had a ball. I had, for the first 18 years of my career, I was having a time of my life, and I allowed myself to get jaded and forget why I was there. And if I go back and tell myself what to do, I would have recognized that, hey man, there's things that we can control. I can control a bad guy, I can control pursuits, I can control all these kinds of things, but there's certain things that I cannot control. And God is going to be in control of some of these certain things that we just have. We've got to be able to take that on board to say, yeah, you know what, there's nothing I can do about this. As much training, as much greatness as I had, there's still a few things that there was nothing I could do about it. And that was a hard pill to swallow. But as it turns out, a very, very easy path was just, have faith. And once I figured that out, everything started to work out great. And now, God bless it, I'm living the best life I've ever had. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Wrote the book, as most of you guys know. Met Natalie, my girlfriend. She's unbelievable. She's a total rock star. She's over there hiding in the corner still, but she's just the greatest thing that's ever happened to me my entire life. But in closing, what I would tell everybody else, in the words of my good buddy David Glasser, he started a trend way back when he got started on telling everybody I love you. And it was really weird the first time I heard those words coming out of another officer's mouth. I'm like, yeah, dude, I love you too, but why don't you stay on the other side of the room, kind of a thing, And unfortunately, with his passing, of course, that whole thing became very infectious, which is actually really a good thing. That was one of the few things that came out of a tragedy that is just, I mean, every single day I hear guys on my old agency talking about it all the time, how that's one thing they'll never forget about him. I just thought that was great. So I think I've rambled on long enough. So
You can ramble on anytime, Chris. I mean, that's quite a story. And I don't even think I took any notes on that because I was just very in tune to what you were saying and all that stuff. So
I appreciate it.
what was the turning point, Chris, for you? What was the turning point? When did you say, hey, listen, I need to make sure that I take control of myself and my mind and make sure that I'm doing all the right things?
It was a couple of things. It was a combination of, I'd wake up in the middle of the night having anxiety attacks, which is not me at all. I mean, you can clearly see how I am now, totally laid back. That's how I've always been most of my life. And when I couldn't figure out why I was falling down crying for no reason, I realized that something wasn't right. I needed to change that. And honestly, that was the birth of the book. That's where it all started. I started just writing the book, and it took quite a bit of resiliency on my part to continue on with it. It did. But once I finally had something in my hands and said, oh my goodness, this is probably the greatest thing I've ever done to save myself, that was a turning point. And Natalie even said that's what saved my life. So
Wow.
yeah, it was huge.
And something, I took out of that, and something that Paul said, it's okay not to be okay. And when we say that it's okay not to be okay, we really, look at taking the power over. And, that was a stigma that I can only hope that's broken now, but we know that still lies out there. And that stigma is, worried about fitness for duty and all that other stuff. But with all the resources that we have readily available to us now, it's such a true blessing that, we're able to be on the other side of that and be able to give people those skills prior to. So, Chris, thank you. This was very inspiring, and really, really just thank you for sharing that, getting deep down in there.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. All right, Angel Shaw. Angel, who is Angel?
I don't think she's going to be on tonight, so I think Chris is next. Chris Gregorio.
Okay, Chris, tell us who Chris is.
Well, good evening. I'm Chris Gregorio. I'm an 18-year police officer in the Pacific Northwest, 23-year soldier. Lots of exposure to a lot of traumas over the years. And I've been blessed, I think, along the way. I've always been a pretty happy, optimistic guy. But I've been blessed to have a lot of great mentors along the way. And probably even more blessed to have a lot of shitty leaders along the way, so I know what not to be. So I'm thankful for that. To encapsulate what I would tell myself if I was younger, a couple of things. To expect, own, and understand that you're going to fail and you're going to have a lot of bad news come your way. It shouldn't be a shock to me. And to give myself the grace to not be perfect, that I'm going to screw up. There's things that I'm going to do, and there's missteps that I'm going to have. And just like all those failed leaders that I had along the way, those things I appreciate even more because they make me better. I've always been a person that learns more from my failures and missteps than from any successes that I've had. And I strive every day to be better. I would tell myself to be all in this career, whether it be the military or a first responder, but don't be Leroy Jenkins all in. Don't be so emotionally bought in that when you put somebody in jail and they get out or something else happens that's out of your control, that it doesn't affect you. That's a very delicate balancing act. And to not let this, like so many other people have said, not to let this job define you. Don't let the military define you. Don't let first respondership define you. And I'm going to say one more thing on that, and I hope that it doesn't tweak anybody the wrong way, but I would tell myself as a young guy that just because you're a soldier or first responder doesn't mean you're special. You're not some God's gift. That badge, that uniform doesn't privilege you to anything. It privileges the honor to serve. And every day that you put that on, there's nothing that I'm owed or entitled or deserve. It's another opportunity to earn tomorrow's chance to have an impact on somebody else's life. Not just an impact, a positive impact. And so those are the things that I tell myself. And as many first responders and military folks go through lots of relationships and marriages, I'd say make that your priority. It is very easy for this job to take you over and to be all in and to sacrifice without asking your family how much they're willing to sacrifice. You do it for them. And I think to try to keep that into perspective will make you happier at home. It'll keep you off that couch and it'll just keep life into perspective. So I'll leave that there. And what I'm thankful for today is tomorrow's opportunity and whatever I'm going to screw up next. So there's something more that I can learn. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing, Chris. There, you said some really good nuggets that I just want to highlight. One was your mentors. We call that, or in my life, I call them my board of directors, whether it's business or whether it's in life, board of directors. And I had some really good board of directors that I can go to, and I had some really bad ones that don't get a vote on my board. And that's truly how I live my life there, because the people that I want to go to and the people that I want to be around are the ones that get votes in my life. And they're the ones I'm going to go to in a time of need. So you really highlighted that. And I like that a lot, because I learned more from the bad leaders than I did the good leaders. And I learned everything that I didn't want to be. Grace is so huge, giving ourselves grace. We're so quick to give, especially in this profession. We're so quick to give everyone else grace, but we really lack to give ourselves grace. And that's really, really important. And, not having things define you and your legacy. We talk about legacy all the time, and we say that we live in the dash, and that dash is the most important part of the death date and the birth date. And when we live in that dash, we want to write our eulogy while we're still alive. So that's a great point. So I just wanted to highlight some of them nuggets right there. So
thanks. If I can leave on one more statement, is that through your career, you're going to get some bad news. Sometimes you earn it, sometimes you don't. You don't have to let those things, that bad stuff that comes your way define you. Find the happiness, look for whatever the good thing may be, because it's never in the moment that we recognize the blessings. It's always as you look backwards.
Oh, absolutely. I never say we win and lose. We live and we learn. So we don't win and lose in life. We live. That's when we're winning, and we learn when we're losing. So if we take those two things away from it, that's a really good point that you make there, Chris. Really appreciate that. Thanks for sharing all. Just an excellent panel, Sarah. I can't even say the amount of notes that I took here, and just being able to have that follow up and being able to get people and hopefully, this is the power of every story that was told tonight. Hopefully somebody can relate to that. Hopefully somebody was touched by that, and always know it's okay not to be okay. And when you ask for that help, no matter what it is, That was one of the biggest things that we wanted to make sure that we did as a company with Resilient Minds. We wanted to make sure that we had that partner in, and that was Acadia Health, to have that back end resource, because we know that bad things are going to happen. We know that things are going to happen in people's lives. And we want to make sure that that resource is readily available for culturally competent people, psychologists, psychiatrists, to make sure that they can deal with not only first responders, but military veterans and so forth. So culturally competent is very, very important to understand that not just anybody can do what law enforcement does, and not just anybody can do what these guys and gals do every day. And it's such an honorable profession. And I'm so glad that it was a huge part of my journey. So, just being here and doing all that, that's so great. And I guess what we'll do now, Sarah, is we'll just open it up for some question and answers. If anybody has any question and answers, love to be able to share that.
I do want to just thank you, Michael. You did a beautiful job facilitating. And I think with all your experience and your wisdom, I think it was just a wonderful response to the stories. And I can tell you too, as a civilian, it has been wonderful meeting so many first responders and just to see who they are, just true servant leaders. And so it's such an honor to get all of your voices out there, because you deserve it. And I really want people to hear your stories and your voice and just who you are. So thank you so much. And yes, we can just open it up to question, answer, comments. And I'll hand it back to you, Michael.
All right, that sounds good. Does anybody have any final thoughts or questions, answers?
I'll throw in one final thought if nobody else is going to speak up. I want to quote the great philosopher Jocko Willink. For those of you that don't know Jocko, he's a retired Navy SEAL and probably one of the greatest humans on the face of the earth for so many different reasons. He likes to say, and he's got a great video of it, when things get tough, good. I was taken back by that. When things get tough, good. And why is it good, Jocko? Because it gives you the opportunity to do better tomorrow. So when things get tough, good, and fix it, because tomorrow you'll do it better. So for me, I've taken a lot away from that interview that he did, where he describes the idea and the concept of good. So anytime something comes bad, good, fix it, do better.
Time to get better. Excellent point, Dave. Excellent.
I just want to say that there's so much wisdom here that I hope that people share it and other people watch it, because being part of this group and hearing the stories, and sometimes we get a little deeper into our stories, but there's so much wisdom that comes from all of it. And I know I grow a little bit every time that something hits you. We're a different person each day. And so those stories, even though we've heard them, they may touch us in a different way the next day. Thank you, guys. All.
That's a great point, Shannon. I just want to follow up with that, because we just never know who we're going to be able to touch or who we're touching. Because sometimes what we're doing, and this is what we do in our stories, is we create those Me Too moments. And I mean, Me Too, that happened to me too. So when we're able to say those things and be able to understand, we know how that person's feeling, because sometimes when we're in an issue or we're in a problem that's so we think that we're the only ones that have been dealt with that, when obviously we want to make sure that somebody else can relate to that too with their story. So great point there. Awesome.
And I'd just like to piggyback on that, on what David said. Another quote by Jocko is that all you selfless folks that are here trying to help somebody else, and for whoever's listening to this, remember, the solution's always simple. You know what to do, but it's not easy. So understand that these things, for all of us, no matter where we're all talking about in our lives, it's a struggle for every single one of us every day. Finding that happiness is a struggle absolutely every day. So don't look for that magic happiness pill, because it doesn't exist. So understand that it's a daily process, sometimes minute by minute. Thanks.
No, that's such a great point, Chris. Such a great point, because I can sit here and I believe that I have the answer for this whole thing. But what I'm going to tell you is the easiest thing, and we'll probably say, oh yeah, that's everybody's light bulb will come on. But I'm going to tell you, it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do. And if you change your mind, you change your life. Period. At the end. I'll say it again. If you change your mind, you will change your life. And that is probably cliche that we all can say, wow, that's pretty easy to change our mind. Well, try to go out and do that. Very difficult. Very difficult. So every day is that same struggle. Every day it's creating new habits. Every day it's creating new neural pathways in our brain to be able to get through that forest, because those trees are constantly in the way. So we have to make new neural pathways in our brain to make sure that we're doing, different things. Because if we do the same thing over and over again, what do we call that? Pretty much insanity. So we don't want to do the same things over and over again and expect a different result. When we look at those things, we want to say, how can I change? What can I do? Because we can change everything in our lives. Absolutely. We can change you can change everything from your husband or wife, or you can change your address. You can change all that stuff. But if you don't change your mind, there ain't nothing in this world that's going to change. And that's pretty much it. So great point, Chris. How about anything from New Zealand? Any words of wisdom from New Zealand?
Yeah, I was gonna pop on. I was letting everybody else go. I'm a huge why guy. I did training in here a little while back, helping people really locate that why. And so I would say for everybody listening, and we heard it quite a few times, know the why. No matter what level you get to, know the why. Know why you're here and stay focused on it. Know the rules to make it apply. The rules that you put to it. And if you don't like the rules, guess what? You're in charge of your own mind. You get to change those rules. So change the rules so that it always serves you and you'll never fail.
There you go. There you go. Great point, Chris. Excellent. Excellent. Any other final thoughts, questions, comments?
I have a comment, and I think Chris Hoyer does too. I have taken to refusing to compare myself with other people. Instead, I compare myself today with how I was yesterday, and I say, what have I done to improve myself? And tomorrow, that cycle repeats itself, and maybe several times during the day. But I just decided that comparing myself to other people is a losing strategy. And you'll always be disappointed, or you'll always be one-upped. And if you simply compare yourself to how you were yesterday, you'll know if you're making progress. And if you're not, somebody else as a comparison is not going to help that.
Great point, Paul. Great point. When we look at that, we want to make sure that we get better each and every day. Awesome point. Yes, Chris Hoyer.
Okay, final thought for me is this is something that's very difficult for us as first responders to do, but trusting in your vulnerability, being able to say, I know you touched on it earlier, that's one of the quotes that I use on a regular basis. It's okay to say you're not okay, but taking it a step further and recognizing that, hey, there's times when you're going to be, like in my case, I mean, I don't want to throw myself to the wolves here, but being a victim, of all the stuff that I had to go through to be where I'm at now, to hopefully help somebody else out. And that took a tremendous amount of vulnerability and accepting that, taking it on board and saying, hey, you know what, that's okay. Move on with it, take it on board and make something out of it. Instead of sitting there and doing what I was doing for not too long. It was long enough for me to figure out that, laying down crying in the corner, that ain't going to get it done. It's just not, so figure out how to get your shit together and get it together. So, easier said than done, of course.
It is. It is. We always say action. You can sit here and you can say, I want to be a millionaire. I want all these things in my life, but what am I doing to attain them? How am I getting there? What are my goals? What are my sub goals? Are they measurable? Are they attainable? Are they relevant? Are they timetable? Just being able to put all that together and know that, because, again, we have to make sure that we have 86,400 seconds in a day. What are we going to do with them? What are we going to do at that time? Because that's the one thing that we can't buy more of. So great points here and
Can
everything.
only be a good steward of what we have. And that includes our time, our resources, our friendships, all of it. We have to be good stewards of it because they're not ours. When we leave, they're staying behind.
Yes, that absolutely.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on what Chris said about the vulnerability. It's after joining this tribe here and just going through some other things, and with the unwavering support of my lovely wife, I was able to start opening up and sharing my story. And I've done it a couple times now with Sarah's group and some other platforms, webinars, conference presentations. And I've learned that my vulnerability is actually my strength, and it's what's actually enhancing my resilience.
So true, Daniel. And obviously for to be a resilient minds instructor, we look for 4 things, and vulnerability is at the top. Vulnerability, transparency, accountability, and authenticity. So those 4 things are so very important to us in our company, because if you don't have them 4 things, then we're just a PowerPoint company, and that's not exactly what we want to do. So you hit a great point there as well. Thank you for sharing. Michelle, you're on mute, Michelle.
There we go. I just want to say I appreciate being included in tonight's meeting, and thank you to everybody that shared. Everybody has something that is relevant to somebody, and you never know when and where that might come to the forefront. So even if somebody's story didn't match something to me directly today, doesn't mean it isn't going to match next week. And having the ability maybe to reach back and bring that forward, I think is a great tool for everybody to have. So I'm glad I was able to participate tonight.
Me too. I wanted to finish this. I know that Dave Bray, USA, was supposed to come on with us tonight. He was going to be a little special guest. Dave is a singer-songwriter. He is actually doing sound check for us right now. We're hosting a big concert here on the Jersey Shore Boardwalk tomorrow. And Dave is the singer-songwriter for The Last Call. He's also very big in law enforcement, and he wanted me to let everybody know what they mean to him. What he is inspired. He's a veteran. He's somebody who is a patriot, and he wanted me to put that out to each and every one of you, and apologize that he couldn't make it out because he is on sound check right now. So again, what a great evening. Sarah, if you have any final thoughts, I'll hand it over to you, and just want to say what an honor and a pleasure it has been. And I'm so empowered by everybody's story, and keep that going. We go back to our ancient ancestors. That's how they learned, by telling stories. And that's basically what this group is doing right now.
Oh, wonderful. Michael, do we have time for one more comment from Keith? I think he was about to comment.
Sure.
Were you going to ask something, Keith?
I was just going to kind of bounce off of what some of the others were saying. And it's really true, being transparent and being vulnerable. When I finally reached that point, after literally decades of suffering and silence, and holding everything so close to the vest, I wanted to portray that perfect, I'm the perfect dad, I'm the perfect supervisor, I can do no wrong type of thing. And it wasn't until I got real and got honest with myself and honest with other people that I personally was able to heal by putting it all out there, and it's like, yeah, you know what, I'm a freaking train wreck. And, it wasn't until I reached that point to where I opened up with people, to where the healing could begin. So this is a great group, and thank you for doing what you do. And that's all I got.
Excellent.
I have one more thought I'd like to share, and that is that a week ago on Saturday, a group of us got together in La Jolla and had a nice lunch together. There was a lot of learning that went on there, some of it intended and some not. But one of the things that I took away from that, which is a totally different spin on what I had thought about in terms of leadership, and I think, and Sarah, you'll know, but I think it was Scott Rathke that said it, but I could be wrong about that. My hearing is not all that good, and the acoustics in there wasn't very good, so I'm not sure. But whoever said it said, lead with love. And if that doesn't capture the spirit of servant leadership, I don't know what does. Thank you.
Oh, Paul, I do remember that being said, and I am thinking through, I'm not sure who said that, but that was a good one. It's, Michael, thank you again for facilitating. I'm always so touched because, just piggybacking on what Keith said, just the humility to really get real. That's what I have found on this group, that just the humility to be real, the humility to really focus on self-healing, and the humility to really be there for each other. I mean, there's a camaraderie because this is a bunch of humble, giving people. And I love seeing this spread because everybody is doing their part just by caring and learning and discovering themselves and healing and thriving. So thank you all. And I do hope that this, that people will hear this and know that they are welcome to come on. And Michael, again, I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to share your story and facilitate. And I really hope we can do more collaborating. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I would love that. I would love that. This is phenomenal. This is phenomenal what you're doing. Keep up the great work, everyone.
Thank you.